there were quite a few factors that meant that I didn't really know how I would end up feeling about the Aurora Teagarden series. And honestly, I really did thoroughly enjoy it, but just kind of some background for where my opinions are coming from. I'm a big Candace Bure fan. I love crime films. I am a crime writer. I write crime fiction. But at the same time, I don't usually like what I call fluffy crime, where it's not exactly gritty and it's not exactly graphic. And this is what we're getting with the Aurora Teagarden series. So I kind of thought, okay, this might just be a little bit too fluffy for my liking. But honestly, it actually worked really well. That's not to say that it isn't light and that it isn't fluffy, but it worked really well. So I decided to watch Real Murders. Real Murders, I believe, was actually the first novel that was published. It's based on the books by Charlaine Harris, but I think it was the second in the Aurora Teagarden series from Hallmark. And in this one, there is a real murderers club that meet. I assume that they feature quite frequently. Aurora Teagarden is part of this club, and at the start of their meeting, they realise that one of the members of the meeting has actually been murdered. And Aurora Teagarden, being a very big fan of true crime and murders, decides to take it upon herself. Well, I say decides to take it upon herself. She instinctively starts investigating this murder, and we do have some homicide detectives involved. There's one in particular who is constantly basically saying, Detective Lynn Liggett-Smith, played by Miranda Frigon, who is constantly saying to Aurora that, leave this to the real detectives, which I like. I like the fact that they're pointing out that this amateur shouldn't really be getting their nose involved in this kind of crime. I will say that I didn't work it out. I didn't work out who the killer was. I'm not going to divulge any of this information. Did I care that much? I think it took me about half of the film to get to the stage where I was actually invested in trying to work out who the killer was. Up until that point, I just kind of enjoyed it. Now, there are a lot of things in this that would not happen in a real criminal case. A lot of information that would not be shared, a lot of protocols that would not happen like this. And if I had written this as a crime author, it would not go down well. I get a lot of reviews saying this is unrealistic, etc. So if you're looking for something that's very realistic, it looks like the Aurora Teagarden series is not going to be for you. But if you like crime films, you like films about murder, but you're not in the mood for something that's particularly dark or gritty, then this is a nice fluffy alternative. And actually, it is a well developed narrative. I don't think it was that obvious. I do think it's, as I said, unrealistic, and there are maybe one too many coincidences. But nevertheless, I did enjoy it. Candace Bure as Aurora Teagarden is brilliant. It's also worth pointing out that my protagonist, my detective protagonist, her middle name is Aurora. So there's another thing there that made me think, okay, this may draw too many parallels with my own thinking. I may not like it, but no, it didn't. It didn't affect my opinion of this at all. As my introduction to the Aurora Teagarden series, I feel like Real Murders was a great start. It's definitely made me want more to watch more of them, and I absolutely will. If you've been on the fence about watching it, if you're like me, you like real crime stories, maybe you write crime yourself as well, you're not sure if this is going to be for you, I'd say definitely give it a go as long as you're not in the mood for something dark and gritty, because it's not. It's very light and fluffy and unrealistic, but it is thoroughly enjoyable. I like Hallmark, I love Candace Bure. Real Murders, for an introduction to the Aurora Teagarden series, it's definitely a pretty great start.